Hello, my name is Nathan. I am joined here with my partner Cameron Hill. Cameron, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Our presentation is on enjoyment. Um, have you do you have anything to add in, Cameron?
Oh, let's kick it to slide two.
All right, on to you.
All right. So for the content, we're gonna start with the introduction. We're gonna slide over to the definition of enjoyment. That's gonna be from a fan's perspective as well as the literature and review that we did. We'll go over three theories that we found in some literature review. We're gonna look at our research questions. We're gonna look at scales of enjoyment. We're gonna go over two interviews that's gonna be handled by Nate, and then we're gonna go to the concepts and the conclusion.
All right. So the introduction, why enjoyment? Cameron, this is to you.
All right, so sport enjoyment or fun in children's term, it's essentially the most important and most studied positive emotion in youth, adolescent, and elite sport. Based on youth sport research, fun or enjoyment was found to be one of the most important reasons given by athletes for choosing to participate in sports. And that's essentially why it's one of the most important and most studied, is because enjoyment tends to lead to more why people want to play sport, want to participate in sports. Um, if a lack of enjoyment was shown, it's a prime example for why people drop out of sports and stop playing. And the enjoyment emotion gives people a purpose to have fun in sports and give themselves passion to pursue their dreams through a sport that they love and enjoy. All right, so the research questions, three of the research questions we found were: how does enjoyment in sport impact participation? How enjoyment of sport can impact health? And how media can impact enjoyment from a fan's perspective? So we said research question one was to conceptualize enjoyment from a sports fan perspective. Research question two was to develop a set of Likert type scale. And research question three was to navigate a research trend.
All right. And then for theory one, which is goal theory, Mario Fontana, which is our excellent professor of women in sport, provided us with this theory in 2017. So the research study we're basing our theory one from is a research study by Mario Fontana, Mary Fry, and Emily Kramer, talking about pride, compassion, self-compassion, and shame and pride in adult recreation sport. This research study talks about the relationship between athletes' perspectives of the motivational climate to their pride, compassion, self compassion, and shame in adult recreational sport. Based on Tanzny and Deering of 2002 within the article, they describe shame as those experiencing shame typically felt as if they have violated a cultural standard. This is just because it's just one of the things within a culture that when they experience shame, they just experience depression as well. So how this compares to enjoyment in sport is how an athlete loses enjoyment if they lose interest within a sport they love. It's just like how you lose interest in playing tennis, but and as well as soccer because you just don't like it or something happens with you and another teammate. And then different climates impact an athlete's perspective on their love of sport by how the sport climate is shown, such as a caring climate boosts self-compassion and enjoyment, while an egocentric climate dissolves self-compassion and enjoyment within the athlete. And then Cameron, you got theory two.
All right, so theory two was by Smith, which was the coach and athlete theory. So essentially, it stated that the relationship between coaches can impact behavior of the athletes, which can impact health. And it was shown that more controlling coaches reduce enjoyment in athletes. And when enjoyment is reduced, the overall health of an athlete is lowered, and that's physical health, mental health, and emotional health. So essentially, a good coach is going to bring more enjoyment to an athlete, which is going to make them physically healthier because they're going to want to participate more, mentally healthier, and emotionally healthier. And then more controlling coaches, or mean, or however you want to put it, that's going to reduce their enjoyment. When their enjoyment is reduced, they're going to want to play less. When they want to play less, they're mental health, emotional, and physical health are all going to be reduced.
And for theory 3, that's actually is you as well, Cameron.
So the third theory that we found was the media fan theory, or the fan media theory. Basically, what this stated is that the media can impact enjoyment from a fan's perspective. And it was shown that enjoyment from fans increase when well-liked athletes experience desired outcomes, and it is decreased when they experience negative outcomes. And that's also portrayed by how the media puts it out there. So when, LeBron, a well-liked athlete, wins the NBA finals, and they put that out into the media, fans' enjoyment is going to increase, as opposed to LeBron, still a well-liked athlete, might be struggling or gets hurt or leaves Cleveland for the first time. The fans' overall enjoyment is going to be decreased when something like that happens. And then on-court and off-court coverage of an athlete can both have negative and positive effects on enjoyment based on how an athlete is perceived. Sticking with LeBron, same thing right there, is that on court he wins the finals, it can make fans happier and bring their enjoyment levels up. And off the court, LeBron leaves to go from Cleveland to anywhere else, the fans' enjoyment is going to be decreased. And off court stories tend to be character-based stories, which generally result in higher levels of enjoyment for sports fans. Basically, that's going to be like, I just saw an article, Kyrie Irving bought a bunch of hoodies of the Mambasita, the Kobe brand, that was put up by his wife, and he bought a bunch of hoodies for his team. And that, it's a character-based story that increases sports fan enjoyment because they're gonna, have a better feeling towards Kyrie and towards the team.
And then we have an interview with Mrs. Drozer. So this interviewee is actually Veronica Drozer, a communication teacher that I have, that talks about really just enjoyment in her perspective of the communication teaching world and how that has helped her in her career. And one of a couple of her answers were just like all about the good memories, positive memories, connecting with the people via single or multiple teams, senses of belonging. So like one of the questions that I asked was like, how would enjoyment impact your actions from a teaching standpoint? Her answers were like personal growth, getting to know people around in her area, and to develop herself as a positive teacher and a well-qualified teacher. Engagement within course material with personal motives, making sure that she's always connected with her classmates and with her peers. And another one was understanding and learning self-awareness, knowing who they are, being personal, and being connected to where she can be an outlet to anyone that needs help within the class. Another question I had was relationship between enjoyment and increased consumer action, attending events, buying merchandise. Was there a significance? She actually explained that she was the graduate president at the University of Denver when she went, and it was like a sizable budget. And she loved being the president there, and she had a chance to attend events and buying merchandise there at Denver. And she also talked about an example where like it's not about the event, about attending it. It's just more of being there with your friends, your family, being able to enjoy that event as a whole, as like a college social hour, like at parties would go at like night if you're out like day drinking or something. Experience the game more, just like a perspective of with family and friends. And then the merchandising standpoint, product is just, it's merchandise on the side. If you want it, you can go get it. If not, you don't. And then the last one was just another one was just how could enjoyment impact a consumer's behavior? she gave an example of a New Balance, like the New Balance shoes. They were based in Massachusetts. Actually, the New Balance shoe was based in Massachusetts, which is actually her hometown, which is she actually has a positive connection to New Balance, and she did tell me she had like a lot of New Balance shoes in her closet as well. Um, another another question for Mrs. Drozer was, can enjoyment be taught with college students? And she said, what we really want out of life and learning self-awareness is to increase enjoyment. What you truly enjoy and what you want to enjoy is very important. That is just a connection that she always has at the start of every class, is just to get connected with students and what they want to do in their future after they graduate. And another one was, within the world of communication, how can communication factor within the enjoyment of sports and the merchandising world? She said using communication to build relationships for people, social behavior is huge within humans and it's very successful. It's just when talking to humans, it's a part of the thing. You got to know what you're talking about, and communication is key. Getting to know them, getting to know you, and building just that positive mindset. The last one, with your experience of communication, how can this be taught with enjoyment in the sports marketing world? And she just explained with just all marketing, connection to the product that is being sold, marketing to people that they see to connect the product to the people, relational building and development, using communication, creating valuable relationships. And then our another interviewee was actually David Atkin, from our first connection with him in Dr. Chang's class. And it's an embedded video, so I'm gonna just explain it very simple. He just talked about how he enjoyed his start to where he is now, a director of ticket sales at with the Rochester Americans, how he got there, like how his career helped him out, and how he enjoyed that. And he also talked about how he likes to see the fans' perspective during game time and before game time, and showing how the enjoyment of the fans just gives him enjoyment to actually be there and develop a passion for that sport. Since it's in hockey, he always is active and um, always has a good perspective on every game and what he's doing, like every day, a day-to-day life. So if you just listen to the video, it's just more in depth on what he's talking about, and he just gives a broader perspective of like what he does on a day-to-day basis and how enjoyment has helped him throughout his career. And then the keywords is actually with Cameron here.
Yep. So the keywords from the literature review and the interviews that we found were: enjoyment and sports overlap in numerous ways. Also, coaches can impact enjoyment of athletes. I explained how they can impact them positively and negatively by the way that they coach. Enjoyment from athletes can directly impact their own health. So essentially, the more athletes enjoy sports, the more they enjoy their coaches, the more they want to play sports, the physically healthier they're going to be. And then that it's also going to make them mentally and emotionally more healthy. And then the enjoyment of sports fans can be impacted by media coverage. We talked about how there's on-court and off-court media coverage that can impact sports fans by the way that they're covered, or, if they're covered in a positive or negative light. And then also who and how the media decides to cover can directly change a fan's enjoyment. And that just talks about who, if they're going to cover a positive or negative story out of which people from an organization, and how they cover it. We've seen positive stories covered negatively and negative stories covered positively. There's ways to spin stories, but it's just how the media decides to make a story that can change a fan's enjoyment.
And then we also have the definition of enjoyment from a sport fan perspective. So our definition is just very simple, right here on the PowerPoint. It's just fans' positive emotional response to their sport involvement that encompasses generalized feelings such as fun, pleasure, liking, and love. That's just if you're just having a good old time with your friends, family, collegiate partners, your love of your life, just anything you're doing in life that just you love to do. And then the scales to measure enjoyment. There are many ways to measure emotions and feelings within a person any time of the day. So I did do a little research, and this is what we came up with was pupil dilation, eye tracking. And so if you look at a person's eyes, if they're very happy and that day, the pupil dilation in their eyes actually get is increased and about fills the eye just because of their joy for something in that day. There's also skin conductance. The EDA and GSR is just a test to determine the conductancy of the skin. It's called the electrodermal activity. Refers to the variation of the electrical conductance of the skin in response to sweat secretion. This device measures electrical signals recorded by electrodes applied to the skin. And our teacher, actually Chang, did help us with this just a bit. And I actually found this on Google. It didn't show an author about it, but I know that our professor actually helped us out with it as well. Brain activity, the EEG and fMRI is just another way to measure emotion as well. This is just an encephalograph and functional magnetic resonance imaging. It's just a lot of big words there, but extremely efficient methods for the assessment of human brain function, indicated measuring by neural activity. This is just if you're having a good day and just your brain's running wild of just all the things you have to do on your to-do list. The last one is heart rate. It's also with like anxiety and the adrenaline rush of like a sports game, or a sports fan perspective is like if your sport team your sport team is winning the game, you have that adrenaline rush of just the enjoyment of that your sport team is doing very well or doing very bad. And it's called the ECG. This is just a test, electrocardiograph, that is a measuring device used to measure heart rates between intervals of two successive QRS complexes within the heart. And then you just got your facial expressions. If they're happy, you just got to smile. And then if they're not, you don't want to talk to them. And then items to measure enjoyment, we did find out that on pages 11 and 12 of this document that is shown within this URL here of Murick's article with Beckett's and Zaunowski's article of 2016, they researched the psychometric evaluation of physical activity through an enjoyment scale in adults with functional limitations. This is just an article that just describes these things that shows just some items just to measure enjoyment. And then Cameron is going to just talk about the scales to measure enjoyment as well that we talked about earlier in the slides.
Yep. So some additional scales to measure enjoyment were different sports climates can impact an athlete's perspective, as we talked about in Fontana's goal theory. Media can impact sports fans. That was our media fan theory. Good coaches can increase athletes' overall enjoyment and sports enjoyment, either negatively or positively. That was in our coach theory. And then a team can bring a person enjoyment.
And then we just got our references. So my name's Nate. His name's Cameron. And that's just the PowerPoint. Have a good night. And then we will